Hello, all you hardcores out there. How are you doing? Nice surprise for you. Julian's back. How you doing, Julian?
All good, mate. Too warm, but I'm all good.
Good man. Uh, DAZN, what do you think to the setup at the moment? You know, like the behind the scenes thing where David Diamante, aka Iron Man, Bellew, Chris Lloyd, Barker, Eddie are bouncing about. I think it's all a bit naff.
Well, he's complete. The first word that comes to mind is it's unprofessional. If
Yeah.
you're a visiting fighter, I expect to be reported on and I expect everything to be impartial and neutral. And the whole broadcast from start to finish was just a load of cheerleaders, and how they can put the name to that and how they can think that's right and just, and why they do not think that's disrespectful to, to the likes of Pulev and anybody else who's on that bill. I just hate it. It's one thing saying turn the sound down, which sometimes I lower it down, and it's like, we'll watch the fights and I'll message you, Max will message, you do that because you can't stand listening to them. You want to hear somebody who's at least talking in the same language as you and talking sense. But I cringe at the before the bell when it's Chris Lloyd and Darren Barker. I can't stomach it, to be honest. It's like whoever's the home fighter, all they do is talk about that fighter. They never mention the opponent, and it stinks for me. And I just, beginning to end, it was just, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with David Hay, Tony Bellew being the unofficial scorecard? Where do you want to start?
Tony Bellew screaming instructions from microphone with microphone to his ear. One is screaming like a banshee, one in ringside.
Yeah, I think some of those. I wonder if that scorecard as well, because we spoke about Bellew before, I quite like Bellew, but I wonder if that scorecard was what he truly believed, or because he'd been slapped on the wrist previously, hasn't it, with the
Bellew say he thought Pulev nicked it.
I think I wondered if it was being over generous to Pulev. It was a hard fight to score, to be honest.
I thought Pulev won it myself, and I did say before, as you saw in your text, I Steve Gray's judge. He'll be his little bit last scorecard read out, and he'll be deciding man on night. And it'll be.
You can write that, can't you? I thought Chisora won for what it matters. I thought Chisora won. I thought it was a scrappy fight. It was difficult to score. Do you like the volume and the kind of ring generalship, the long range stuff of Pulev, or do you like those kind of missiles that Chisora were launching? Some of them were landing, some of them weren't. You kind of remembered them. I thought when I watched it, we do watch it, we're hypocritical, we're addicted to this sport, mate. But when I watched it, it was quite uncomfortable the first 6 or 7 rounds, mate. It was quite uncomfortable because Chisora's movement's completely gone. You can see he's kind of shuffling and his balance isn't right and his eyes don't look quite right when he gets caught, and he freezes for a split second when he gets hit, and it was really uncomfortable to watch.
David Hay, when he got hit, when he freezing and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And then Pulev obviously couldn't quite finish it, could he? Couldn't quite time the right uppercut left up that he needed to throw to close the show. And it's one of those that people will say it was entertaining. It's always going to be entertaining when you get two guys who are warriors who have got a big pair of balls, who ultimately are not what they used to be. The defense isn't what it used to be. It just becomes wild, doesn't it? And it becomes entertaining, but not very technical and not very.
Derek Chisora's head, right? Do you know when he first started boxing, right? His head wasn't as big as his head is now.
I think there's something in that. It just like how many times has.
Listen, I've been stood next to him. I'm looking at it. I thought his head's huge. You know, you like when you see a lion behind a screen at the zoo, you think, God, look at the size of their head.
Yeah.
Chisora's head, mate. His head's huge.
The one thing we got to give him, we live in an age where, I think it's in some ways we should celebrate Chisora. I know that's not might be a popular opinion. He'll fight anybody. He will fight anybody. If you look at his, you're like ready for bed, mate.
Only because he's getting paid, Julian. Yeah, I've had a long one today.
No, he's definitely getting paid, but he's still stepping. Everyone's getting paid and not taking the kind of fights that he's taking. So I'm going to give him the credit. But what I did wonder as well was if the popularity is waning because of these 12 losses, because that was a 20,000 seat arena, the O2. And Eddie said that they sold 7,000 tickets for that. So they obviously moved people down and condensed it somewhat. But the days of selling out the O2 for Chisora, I think those are long gone.
They'll be gagging for Copper Box now. You watch.
Yeah.
Copper Box and Wembley Arena. They'll be bought up that day. So be bought up your call on that because
100%.
They're saying 8,000 there, wanted that Asia, whatever it's called, alopecia or something like that. He's saying, oh, there were 8,000 there on his video or something. And I'm like, well, no, people were telling me there were 4,000.
Well, there wasn't 20,000, was there, mate?
Security there. Like, no, there were 4,000, maybe a touch more.
There'll be a lot of VIPs as well. There'll be a lot of VIPs on the night.
They're out of the mines, aren't they? Trying to pass that up as 8,000.
Yeah. You could see the blocks. You could see the blocks of empty people, and they're obviously moving people down for that aesthetic on TV.
It's my game. I know how to count how many's there. It's my game. I just think they're thick.
Yeah.
Anyway, what we've got here. This DAZN thing, you know, with Sky. I mean, last 2 years, DAZN have lost 1.3 billion each year, haven't they? Last 2 years. Obviously, you have to buy your way into that game, don't you? But that's what they've lost.
Yeah.
The earns made about 100 million in that 2 years.
I've never seen a business so huge lose that much money and still be operational. You'd be breaking that into pieces, wouldn't you? Selling it off or something. I know the football and some of the US sport is quite popular, but 1.5 billion. I mean, the first time I looked at the books about 2 years ago, it was about 700, 800 grand in the first year trading. And I just thought, wow, it's clearly not, I'm not saying it's not happening in some areas, but it's clearly not as big as they thought it was going to be, is it? And Eddie's...
Oh, he's sold them as worldwide and huge and global and all them big tantalising, compelling and thrown in a bit of apples and pears and go on, my son. He's thrown all that in on her cheeky Nando's. They've bought into him, haven't they? Like that guy bought into Barry Hearn when he sold Leighton Orient. He took millions off that Italian, didn't he? And that looked like, well, what happened? Barry Hearn wanted after he held 10% back, didn't he, for himself? That guy didn't know what he was doing. Barry Hearn got rid of it. He built on 3 corners at land. He couldn't build on 4. He outed it, didn't he?
Yeah, they know what they're doing. They know when to...
mate. Look, the businessmen, if they're trying to get rid of Matchroom, they've seen future for boxing, haven't they? So we'll sell that more to the Matchroom, you know, boxing part of it or whatever. I don't know, but there's something not right. But if they want to cash out and take the money, they're businessmen. Good luck to them. I ain't got a problem with that. But don't fucking say otherwise. You know what I mean?
Eddie's at least been consistent with his shows and putting on half decent shows. I mean, lost amongst the...
Grafter, mate. He's a grafter, isn't he? You got to give him that. He's a grafter.
I thought there was some... Look, we said it was an awful show, but it wasn't really. Was it Magdimov who was on the undercard? That was an unfortunate end to the fight. That's a serious quality fighter there. He's a fucking real top operator for 8 fights. Obviously, he's got the massive amateur experience. And then was it Sorrow, his opponent? It was a good quality fringe world-class fighter.
That's 3 losses.
So that's a good fight. It's just such a shame. You know, that crowd wouldn't appreciate that fight, by the way. But so I'm not going to knock him. You know, you've got the Irish kid, is it Agago, the kid who's dropped down to light middleweight. He looks a handful. There's some quality operators on the card. It just wasn't a sexy card, was it, as such? And they've got, for me, also what was key as well, Russell, was the box ticking with certain fights on the actual, you know, on the main bill. So I thought, you might disagree and everybody else might disagree, but I thought the young heavyweight, what's he called? I'm looking now, mate. Solomon Dakers. He looks half decent, but that's an ex-GB kid, and he's just brushed under the table. He's just, you know, he's from the Midlands. He's not from the big catchment area. Good amateur pedigree. He looked okay to me. He's doing things in that ring that not many heavyweights are doing. There's things listen, I'm not saying there's the next big thing, but there were things he's doing after 4 fights that Anthony Joshua can't do now. He was dropping left hooks down to the body and scooping with the hook back upstairs. He was stepping across and throwing lead right hands. He was doing the half little drop, shoulder drop, and trying the right uppercut, left hook. He was doing some really nice things. He understands range and jabbing. His opponent, I thought, was a decent opponent. You know, he was a tough survivor who knew his way around the ring. And he was like shoved right at the bottom of that bill. And it didn't sit right for me. I'm thinking, why is that? You know, how does he feel being just pushed on before the bell? And that was a bit of a crime as far as I'm concerned. I think he's half decent, that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got growth, he's got potential. He's only 28, which now he's not considered. He's considered young for a heavyweight because of the way that they come through the amateurs. I'm not saying he's amazing. What I'm saying is he's going to be one of them who's going to go under the radar, and he just has more. I thought he was talking about toolbox, don't I? He's a hell of a lot more in his toolkit than some of the heavyweights I'm seeing in the top 7 or 8 in the world. I thought it was all right. I don't mind that kid at all. I'll look forward to watching him.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think to that Johnny Fisher then from Romford, Julian? Is he a gimmick? Do you think he's got a long way to go?
He's definitely got a long way to go. I think his last opponent, this is the idea of kids who you fight. His last opponent, was it the French kid who had a bit of ringcraft about him, give him a half decent fight? And Jim, you know, Mark Tibbs will do a good job with him, but again, a bit like Max, you're coming from a different sport. You've got a very limited experience. Just being a big, strong, athletic person is not enough in heavyweight boxing. You need to have some pedigree. You need to have some background. You're always playing catch up. And Fisher will look good when he's boxing at a certain level. But once he does fight somebody who's got a little bit more about them, it's not going to happen for him. He'll get exposed badly.
Yeah. What next for Del Boy, do you think? Because he's calling out Wilder, but the smart money is saying Dylan White. That's the smart money at the moment. That's the word.
I can see that third fight. They don't have unfinished business as far as I'm concerned. You could argue it's 1-1, couldn't you? But they could fight 10 times and they're still going to be the same wild, scrambling, kind of massive overhand rights, pushing and shoving, close fight. You're going to get a decent fight every time they fight, but you're never going to prove who's going to take a step forward. That's the problem. Derek Chisora hasn't taken a step forward. He's just got a rare win. That's what's happened there.
Got miles on clock though now, aren't they?
Yeah, massive miles on the clock. I have a lot more respect for Chisora just for the fact that he will actually step up and fight anybody, and he's consistent. Whereas Dillian White,
at paydays, he hasn't gone for belts.
Yeah, I can never forget the fact he turned Joshua down at Wembley. That sticks with me, does that? And it almost felt like it felt like he had to be dragged to the ring with Fury a bit, didn't it?
And Caballero.
Yeah, so it doesn't sit with me, mate.
What about Wilder? Where do you see that fight going, or Dubois for Scooby-Doo? How do you think he does against them?
It's a difficult one because I've always thought Wilder was horrendous ringcraft, and the older he gets, what is he now, 36? He's had 2 bad beatings on the clock, hasn't he? So the older he gets, the hammering he's had from Fury the last twice, he's not going to be the same fighter he was 4 or 5 years ago. So I think Wilder would be a really beatable fighter right now, but I don't think a Chisora or a White would beat him. But I think there are 4 or 5 heavyweights right now who could beat Wilder because he's just been too inactive, miles on the clock, exposed, doesn't hold a shot well. And I think technically he's bloody awful. I've always thought the same thing.
So who do you see winning, Wilder and Chisora?
Wilder would land that shot and it would be good night, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be a nice fight to watch, to be fair. But I think it might be in spite of what I've said about Wilder, I think that'd be a 2-round job.
Yeah. What about Dubois, Chisora? You think he'd go for that at the WBA? I
don't know if he'd go for it, but it'd be an interesting fight. I think Dubois would just be too clean and too young for him, and he'd put him out of there. I think it's all about, for now with Chisora, it's about, God, there are the odd fight out there he can win, like Pulev, because he's a certain age, but he's still, when Eddie Hearn said he's still a top 15 heavyweight, that means there's a hell of a lot of heavyweights who can still give him a good hiding. But it's up to him. It's not for me to tell him to retire. He's definitely been entertaining. He's massively accomplished, you know, compared to what your average Joe in the street is. He's had some big nights. He's earned a lot of money, and he's going to do what he's his own man, isn't he? He's going to do what he wants to do. And honestly, good luck to him. At least he steps up.
Yeah. Yeah, do you think they'll be wheeling him out against people like Babic in about 2 years and stuff like that, you know, for like fucking non-title fights and, you know, on a halfway down undercard and stuff? Do you think that's possible for him?
You wonder if he's addicted to boxing, don't you? I mean, we all are in some way, aren't we? But he's an active participant still at a decent level. Pulev's still a decent level. I hope he's invested his money wisely. I'm sure he's absolutely rich, tons of cash. I'm sure. I think he was quite rich anyway. Was Chisora before? Did he have a car lot or something before he fought Fury?
Oh, isn't he?
Yeah, he had some cash, didn't he? So I don't think he's fighting for the money. But the thing is with Chisora, he's a bit of a celebrity, but he's never going to be a pundit. He probably hasn't got the patience to be a manager or a coach. So his identity is as a fighter. And the minute that career is over, what's he going to do with himself?
I give him respect, you know, because he had a privileged upbringing, man. So I give him loads of respect. He didn't have to go down this route, did he? So
exactly. I knew it was for money.
Some of the things he comes out with, it was on, and I rinse him, but I have to give him respect. He's tough as old boots. He turns up. He's been knocked about too much now. He's done a lot of rounds. He had a lot of hard fights, 12 rounders.
Yeah.
Oh, God. He must have had 12 rounders, hard ones.
It's brutal, isn't it? His career is like, it's savage when you look back in his career and you wonder.
He's had about 30 fights since he fought Fury at first time. And he's
not had an easy night, has he? No easy night.
So then he had miles on clock. Then I fell when Fury fought him first time. With that style he has. Because he's like a poor man's Joe Frazier, isn't he? No offense. Yeah. I'm not saying he's no good. He's a good fighter, but he's no Joe Frazier, is he? But it's that style, isn't it?
Yeah, he's the same thing all the time, isn't he? He slips under to the left, slips under to the right. So a big overhand right.
A bit Mike Tyson.
Yeah, he does a double roll, overhand right, left hook, works inside, hits you on the back of the head. He's a bit naughty, but it's not slick, is it? You know, it's like him and Dillian White. That's why there was such good fights, because neither of them are slick. Yeah. But they'll have a fight. They'll turn up and they'll have a fight. But it's one of those. We're getting entertainment. We can't be hypocritical. Boxing's a brutal sport anyway. So any boxer, whether they're a debutant or they've got miles on the clock like Chisora, any boxer faces a risk. So I guess it's up to him what he does.
Yeah. Moving on then from that lot. I just want to add that I'm bored of the burger thing. You know, IFL, boxing social, whatever you're doing. Going into the dressing room after every Del Boy fight, right, and filming them eating burgers. It was all right at first, but 10 fights down the line, Coogan, knock it on head.
See, I've never seen it. You mentioned it before. I didn't know what you were talking about because I don't watch this shit.
Mine's well because I want a burger. You know, I can't eat any.
Can't eat a big burger, can you?
No, you can't. Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. What do you make of it all?
Well, I don't know how valid the sources are, but they're saying that John Fury effectively said that my son wasn't fit, and that's why he hasn't taken the fight. I don't know. I mean, I don't believe sources like the Sun newspaper and the Daily Mirror, but apparently John Fury said something on DAZN to those words, but I've not heard it myself. But I think Tommy Fury, it feels like John Fury's stepping away from it to some extent, and maybe he's embarrassed.
I don't know. They've offered him $500,000, Tommy, to fight Jake in England.
Has Tommy said something like, "I won't get out of bed for $500,000"?
Yeah,
What an insult to all real. I mean, Jake Paul shouldn't earn what he earns, by the way, but what an insult to all those hard-working professional boxers working their way up. Do you know something? The guys fighting for British titles don't earn anywhere near that kind of money, and he won't get out of bed for less than $500,000. I mean, what are you? a 10 bout amateur, and I like Tommy Fury, he's a lovely kid, but I'm talking now about the essence of boxing. You're a 10 bout amateur, you've had 6 knockovers or 7 knockovers in the pros, and you haven't looked that good. You look like an absolute raw novice. You look the same novice level as Jake Paul, to be honest, and you're not going to get out of bed for $500,000. It's a horrendous thing to say.
In his own country.
It's horrendous. So, you know what?
Title defense, that, isn't it? World title defense money, isn't it?
It's massive money. That $500,000 is massive money for in boxing now. It's absolutely massive.
Unbelievable. Shame.
Well, Frank won't pay him $500,000 for his next 6th rounder on a Queensbury show. Let's put it that way.
No. Lawrence, the source, Okolie, has come out and said he wants to go to Sky. Eddie said, you can't, you've got a fight left with me. So they're at loggerheads, and he said Eddie's he's accused Eddie of being a slave trader. Touchy subject, not many people, I mean, however you word out like this, you have to be careful, don't you? Because they change the narrative by the year, don't they? If you haven't caught what you said wrong word, haven't you? Like Bernie Eccleston.
It's.
You know what I mean?
I heard little bits and pieces about it, and I watched the Eddie Hearn interview that might have been Boxing Social. It was one of the interviews that he did, and I'm not often with Eddie, and I'm not often for him or against him. I just talk about it as I see it. I always will. I always do. I'm neither a hater or a lover of Eddie. But I understood what he was saying. Lawrence Okolie was stinking joints out, to be honest. You might not agree with this, but
stinking joints out. Yeah, in people's eyeballs ringside. They're like that.
Yeah, honestly, it was just Lawrence Okolie was. I find him dreadful to watch. So if he's made as much money as...
Is he a human being, or is he a octopus?
He's not somebody I enjoy watching.
Anybody say, come on, Porky, we're going out tonight. It's my turn to treat you. I said, no, I'm not. About boxing's on, so who's fighting? You've got Lawrence Okolie. I'll go.
So what I'm trying to get to, this is where you have to be fair and consistent with promoters. So what has Eddie Hearn actually done that's so bad in terms of how he's handled Lawrence Okolie's career?
I think he's done well for Lawrence Okolie, because I don't think anybody else could have done that with him, do you?
I think he's done fantastic. He's done well to get him a vacant world title shot against somebody who wasn't that good. He had easy fights up until then. He brought him back after a couple of absolute stinking octopus performances, whereas I'm surprised anybody wants to watch him.
He only really lasted this long because he's managed by AJ, isn't he, that Lawrence? Otherwise,
yeah, absolutely. And
he's on Skid Row by now.
So listen, if you think the grass is the only thing where I disagree with Eddie, and this is why I always admired managers like Steve Woods and Mark Bateson. Like some managers won't hand contracts over to boxers. Their view, and those are both good stand-up guys, their view is, if you don't want to be with me, I'll give you your contract back. It's no big issue. You get yourself off and good luck to you. There's no kind of animosity from those guys. If I was Eddie Hearn, I wouldn't be saying you've got one more fight with us or one more fight with DAZN. If I'd read and heard what he's been saying about Eddie Hearn, I'd say, there's your contract. Good luck to you. Good luck with your boxing career. You get yourself off to whoever you want to get yourself off to. I wouldn't be working with somebody who effectively, well, we know what he said, don't we?
He said Eddie's a slave trader. Basically, that's it. Eddie's
a lot of things, but that's a really unfair thing.
I thought he did well for him, considering he doesn't sell no tickets. He's a terrible style. Oh,
awful.
I think he did, and I think the only way he's going to get anywhere is he needs to get into heavyweights, get some weight on, and try and stink heavyweight scene out.
Yeah, can you imagine some of these, like an Andy Ruiz setting about him? If we think he holds a lot now and is gangly and he grabs older people now, he'd be thrown out. It'd be like Henry Akinwande getting thrown out against Lennox, wouldn't he? It'd be he'll stink the joint out everywhere, honestly. I'm not knocking him as such.
Bully at cruiserweight, though, isn't he? He's a bully at cruiserweight, isn't he?
Yeah, because it is a huge cruiserweight, isn't he? He's absolutely massive, and he does carry that kind of right hand power. And there's elements of that. Well, I think that's quite well crafted how he drops that shot down.
I do.
But
I think he could do well at anyway if he had a go like, but he won't be able to do what he does at Cruiser.
yeah, I just something, whenever you see stuff like that, you always think something's gone on behind the scenes, hasn't it? There's something to anger him to come out with that, what perhaps we don't know about. But on the surface, I think it's really bad treatment of Matchroom, and that's not often I would say that.
Yeah, we don't stick up for Eddie, but on this one, I think Lawrence should really. There's no wrong with going somewhere else for a better offer if you've got one fight deal on a contract. And
you don't throw words like that around today in this world. You do not throw words like that
he's
around.
not an arse licker like Tony Bellew, then you reckon?
He's definitely not an arse lick if he's coming out with stuff like that, is he? But he wants to watch what he's saying.
Right, Sky have won that bid, don't you? 28 million. But right, switch Saudi.
Yep.
That bid over TV people. How's that managed to happen like that? How's it gone like that? Because that to me would be disastrous. But nobody's asking questions either. That's disastrous. Look, I know people who send me stuff for emails, people in the industry, and they all agree it's, yourself, that it's bad, in it. But
Really
nobody's
bad.
wanted to ask him about it, are they? But not asked DAZN about these questions and why they're not getting these fights. They didn't get White Fury, did they?
The elephant in the room, isn't it? The golden goose that was AJ. That was the selling point, wasn't it? That was the final handshake with DAZN and Eddie. Was he could promise him all these, the unified fight against Tyson Fury. I'm sure he thought he could promise them other massive fights. And it all went disastrously wrong, didn't it? And now they've got to a situation where they've signed a $100 million deal with AJ, and it doesn't include the only fight that anybody's talking about right now, which is a rematch with Usyk. It's like, I don't think they've confirmed exactly. Apparently, it's up to the Saudis who broadcast the fight, and that is completely up to them. So who knows what negotiations will be going on there? But it's a ridiculous situation. I also think it's a hell of a lot of bloody money. 28 million bid just for the broadcasting rights.
Yeah, but they've got the rights then forever, haven't they?
Yeah, and they've done it to disable. Adam Smith's pulled an absolute blinder there, hasn't he? It might be a lost leader on the first leg of it.
Don't underestimate the Bean.
Yeah, he's proven resilient, hasn't he? He's obviously been sat there.
He can gets where water gets, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's the man, Bean. If you underestimate Bean, you will end up, like them films with Dr. No where they push a button and people just end up out of airplane. That's Bean, let me tell you. He pushes the button, mate, you're gone.
No, he's he's no shrinking violet. I don't care what people think. He's this unassuming family man. He's a cold, calculated businessman. No doubt about that.
Yeah, he's I didn't know he had a snake, home and that.
No, I didn't know that. No, I didn't.
He likes pets and that, so I like him. But I was telling my mate the other day about him, and he says, "Oh, Adam Smith with a snake, Ross." Do you reckon he wasn't scares people with,
I've spoken to him twice before, when obviously before the big Sykes fights on Sky. He was really friendly and really nice, and he's a great speaker. He makes you feel warm, and he's kind of charms you a little bit.
Did he hiss it? Yeah.
Honestly, it was fine. It was really nice and engaging, and he don't give the impression he can't be bothered. But I guess he was almost. I'm going back then as well, when it was probably quite new to a lot of it as well. We're talking 2007, 2008 when we were on those early Sky bills. So he's certainly a bigger personality now, and he's a bigger figure in boxing.
Do you think he's a self-promoter though of himself?
He's a diplomat, isn't he? I think the way he phrases things, he always comes across as being really decent and magnanimous. But deep down, when they do things like winning purse bids and that type of thing, and the bidding right, he's laughing his bollocks off, don't you? Behind the scenes, him and Ben are high-fiving each other.
Behind the scenes, he would stick a knife into anybody in boxing. Adam
100%, absolutely, yeah.
Both know, don't we?
And it's like politicians, you can't get to positions of such power and authority without being an absolute see you next Tuesday. It just doesn't happen, does it?
I know somebody who were in trouble, right, a few years ago at Sky. I'm not going to say his name on here. He was in trouble at Sky Farm. Might get rid of me. He was already talking, he said, about elsewhere, and they didn't. They kept him.
Wow.
And I thought, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of them, isn't it? A little phone call here, phone call there. These are some big players.
He needs a good shake-up at Sky, I think. Adam Smith's been a good servant and that, but I think it's a tired formula now with him behind the thing. It needs changing. You know, like we've changed it in past with Harry Carpenter and all them lot.
Yeah, you got to step back.
He has to step back now because it's becoming a bit WWE-ish and that, and I don't like to see that.
Yeah, with Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross, and you have the same sort of caricatures.
All them stupid words like tantalising and ready for lift off, Matt. Sure thing, Adam. You know what I mean?
I might be wrong. Don't take this the wrong way, but I sometimes wonder, because he knows about channels such as this, and I sometimes wonder if he's saying them. I wonder if he's saying them actually just to fucking give you the tools to just sizzling and tantalising. I think he's just sticking tools up at you.
Rough, tough, rugged. All action, compelling.
The thing is, though, I mean, it makes it sound dramatic. It could make making a cup of tea sound dramatic, couldn't it, Adam Smith? You know what I mean?
That time he told that story to Larry Holmes where they were going around playground at a school and he took his
with his microphone,
dictaphone and that. I mean, I thought that was really brave of him to say that. You know, on ringside, I thought. Adam Smith, I'll never forget Christmas 1982. I was round in the playground going, down goes Fraser, down goes Fraser.
Doing the old Don Dunphy.
Dictaphone. And look at me now, he was saying to Larry Holmes or something. Larry Holmes was like,
but the thing is, though,
your head's gone.
Thing is, though, Russell, if you didn't have the Gad and if you didn't have Bean and that, who would you talk about? Where would the fun be in boxing? Because come on, these are.
I'd just talk to Dennis one after a few weeks.
You just give Dennis it about his shows every single week, poor Dennis, wouldn't you?
Dennis video. So Dennis, what do you think to this one? This is the average losing record of opponents on your show tonight. That's just send
the
Dennis
red.
No, just to make his night, just as he's cracking up in a bottle at 8 o'clock. I'll send it about 7:59. You know what I mean? Just so when he's reading it, be like, kill him.
He's all right, is Dennis.
Yeah, listen, Dennis is all right, isn't he?
He's all right.
Dennis is all right. He just doesn't know about boxing anymore. He's a dinosaur. Right. Billy Joe Saunders. He's been given a fight date.
I saw Domingo tonight. I just watched it before I joined you.
He's been doing a bit with that Greg Marriott, and if he comes back, good, but he should come back at 160 if he comes back and do the job properly. He's not 168, is he?
He's the world's smallest super middleweight, isn't he? You can see that.
I've got all these experts on board, and I always hammer them because I don't think they need it in boxing. You agree with me, don't you? A trainer knows what a boxer should eat, shouldn't, doesn't he, really? We don't need all these graphs and spreadsheets and all that. You know, imagine Mark Tibbs, they were handing me spreadsheets, Porky. Like, what's this? You can see where I'm coming from, can't you? Right.
You know what always pisses me off when I watch camps?
Spreadsheets to Peter Fury.
Honestly, you know what? Listen, I know boxing. I've been in the game a long time, yeah, and I'm not someone who would automatically walk away from anything that's an improvement, you know, on the way that we used to do things. But when I see fighters with fucking heart monitors and things stuck all over them, and 10 people stood around them on a treadmill, all getting paid. I just think, what? Do you know something? It's fucking ridiculous. It's like, hit the road on a morning, go out there in the cold and hit the road instead of 5 cheers.
Click on the link, Julian.
Yeah, will do, mate.